Hello, everyone. We are Awvengers group from the Scientific Writing and Research Methodology class, and we'll be presenting the result of our mini research project titled The Impact of Online Learning During COVID-19 Studies and GPA of Universitas Indonesia students. So here we have the list of contents of our mini research project. The first one is introduction section, which will be presented by me, Naufal Rafi. The second one is literature review section, will be presented by Fadhil Qorano. Research methodology section will be presented by Ferdi Salim. Results and analysis by Avatar. And last one, closing will be presented by all of us. First section is introduction. So the background of our mini research project came from the COVID-19 pandemic that has affected many countries all over the world, as in it has brought about a sudden shift in how people work, with many organizations implementing work from home. And even the educational system has turned from traditional learning that we had for decades into fully virtual learning, which has forced people around the world to adapt quickly to these changes. So the sudden shifts of the educational system world have forced students to really adapt to this new situation they are in. Classes are now becoming virtual, assignments are now all to be taken home, and even group projects are now all taken via e-learning software or video conferencing applications. And so by this background, we have obtained three research questions, which consists of the first one, what are the impacts of COVID-19 and sudden change in the educational system that turned from the traditional learning environment into online learning for the students. The second one is what are the factors that influence impacts of the COVID-19 and the sudden change in the educational system for the students. The third one is how does the COVID-19 and the sudden change in the educational system affect the students' GPA. And as for the research benefits, it consists as follows. The first one, it will help students adapt to the new online learning environment. The second one, it will also help educators and teachers alike to evaluate their method on conducting online teaching. And last but not least, it can also be used as a reference for future studies. Next, so the parameters that the research area will explore are as follows. The first one is Universitas Indonesia students from any faculty and major. The second one is Universitas Indonesia students that experience both offline and online learning.
Okay, now I will present the second section, which is our literature review. Okay, so online learning is defined as a method of learning or education which students will learn in a fully virtual environment. The pandemic is seen as a beacon for the students across the globe to follow this supposedly existing trend of online learning. As in early 2020, the coronavirus causes all education platforms to be shut down and lead to the rise of online learning. But according to Said's study in 2021, the sudden shift to online learning was considered unprepared in early last year. So there are a lot of things to carefully think about to prepare the new normal of learning through a virtual environment. According to Hermanto and Srimoleni studies in 2021, they state in their research that the success of online learning in this pandemic was highly dependent on several integrated components, such as students, educators, learning resources, and the technology use.
And the next, we'll be talking about the methodology of the research. For this research, we use both qualitative and quantitative data structures because this data consists of both numerical and non-numerical. And the reasoning behind this approach is to check the connections between the variables COVID-19 and online learning with the GPA of the students, which both have numerical and non-numerical data. And for this research, we have gathered 6 different stages to do throughout the research. The first one is problem formulation. The second one is literature review. The third one is making the questionnaire. The fourth one is data gathering. The fifth one is data analyzing. And the sixth one is making the conclusion of the research. And for the participant of the research, it will be limited only for the Universitas Indonesia students. And we only seek students that have experienced both offline and online learning. So basically the batches between 2017 to 2019. And for the instrument itself, we'll be using Google Forms to make it easier for the researcher and both the researcher and also the participant in doing the surveys. For the survey question itself, we have several questions. The first section is how the student's perception towards the online learning, and then the second section is the student's perception towards the facilities that will be needed when they are participate in online learning, and then the third section is the impact of the online learning to their academic performance.
So for this section, we will go over the results and analysis of our experiment. Next slide, please. So here we have how we executed our survey. We began on the 7th of December, 2021, and our survey was published to random students of Universitas Indonesia via social media. And from that, we were able to gather a total of 38 responses. Next slide, please. So here is the breakdown of our respondents' demographic. As you can see, a good majority of our participants were students of Fasilkom UI, which is the computer science faculty. So this should be taken into consideration when analyzing the results, as computer science students may not necessarily need face-to-face interaction, as opposed to faculties that rely on, let's say, lab work, such as engineering or other sciences. Next slide, please. So here we have the graphs for how they, regarding their perception towards online and offline learning. So here we see that over half of the students are comfortable with online learning, but a large majority of students are more comfortable with offline learning, as much as 81.3%. And we saw that a quarter of students, 25%, are uncomfortable with online learning, while only 4.2% felt the same about offline learning. Despite this, we saw that 31.3% of students would prefer to stick with online learning, even if offline learning were to become available. We chalk this up to several factors, such as online learning being more cost-effective and students needing to commute back and forth to and from campus, as is the case with offline learning. And it may be just more convenient to study online. So it is for this reason that some students may prefer to study online despite its overall lower comfort or effectiveness. Next slide, please. So here we go over our findings about the effectiveness of online and offline learning. So here we see the majority feel that offline is more effective, while only about 25% feel the same about offline learning. So this could mean that offline learning could still remain popular due to its convenience rather than its pure effectiveness. So here we have the survey results regarding how prepared they are based on the facilities that they have, such as the internet access and the devices needed. So we saw that most of the respondents felt that their equipments are adequate for online learning. Next slide, please. Here we have the responses of which e-learning environment they used. Over half said that they use Scale, which is the online learning environment which is used for Fasilkom, the computer science faculty, while 33.3% responded a must, which is a general e-learning environment for other faculties of Universitas Indonesia. Next slide. So here we saw that the majority of respondents believe that the e-learning environments that are used to facilitate their online learning experience are adequate, while over half felt that the experience, while only 12.5% felt otherwise. So these findings relate to previous works, particularly of Karadag, Hermanto and Sri Mulyani, El Said, and Means and Neisler, which were covered in our literature review section. So those works drew connections between the teacher and lecturer's ability to facilitate online learning and the academic performance of the students, which we will cover in the next section. So here we saw that most students felt that online learning has given them a better score, although as we see in the next section, their GPA seems to indicate otherwise. So here we see that the first graph shows a relatively high number of respondents with a positive difference in their GPA. So that is to say, their grades at the start of online learning were worse than they were offline. And in the next graph, it shows an even higher ratio of respondents whose GPA have worsened in the most recent semester of online learning. So this may have several causes, such as the trouble of adapting to online learning, additional stress and burdens caused by the ensuing COVID-19 pandemic, or an increase of difficulty within the later semesters. As the decline in GPA has worsened in the most recent semester, we suspect that it is unlikely that the problem lies in the issue of adaptation alone. That's all. From our study, we have drawn several conclusions. The first of which is that Universitas Indonesia students prefer offline learning rather than online learning due to its effectiveness. While their facilities are good enough, they still feel more comfortable with offline learning, and that Universitas Indonesia students have experienced a decline in their GPA while doing online learning.
Even though we have found several conclusions regarding the research, we have also we need to also take into account the limitations on our sample size. As we know, we only have 48 respondents, which is a little small in comparison to how it could be reflected into the world. And then the second limitations are we have a limited scope of the factors that are examined for different types of reasons regarding the declining of the GPA or something else.
Okay, so we have, based on our research, we have a few suggestions to make to the parties related to the research and also future researchers. So the first is the suggestions for the lecturers. So the suggestions are keep improving the online learning system and engage students' trust to motivate them. And for the students is that they have to find a way to keep being motivated following the online class, and also take advantage of time spent during online learning, because with online learning means that they have to spend less activity and they can have more time on learning. Okay, next.
Okay, for the suggestions for the next researcher is first to explore the factors behind the demotivations of students while doing online learning, and second one is to explore the reason why their GPA has been declining during online learning. So I think that concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching.